Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Chasing Collectibles Catchup. I'm Tyler, and we're back to our comic book origins today. We have a friend of ours that I've been meaning to have on the show for a good bit. We've got Don Wells of, RVK Comics and Toys. So, Don, welcome to the show. Excited to have you.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So, something I like to ask people starting off is, in comic books, we have origin stories and all that, the Superman crashing on Earth and, Batman with his parents. What is your comic book origin story? How did you get into all this, geek stuff, whether it's comics and toys and all that? How did you first get into it?
I always had a few comics as a kid. I'm in my 50s, so I had a few comics and grew up watching Batman 66, the six
Nice.
Dad and West series, and Super Friends, but really not into it. But
Hmm.
I remember all that stuff. What really got me into it was GI Joe.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
the I remember seeing the commercial for the comic book, which not many people knew that, but Marvel advertised the comic book on Saturday morning cartoons during
Hmm.
commercials.
Nice.
So walked to my local convenience store, picked up the first issue, and I was buying it regularly. But then when I'm in there, I'm like, oh, there's Flash. I love
Yeah.
Flash, so let me pick up some of those issues, and then Green Lantern, and this was also in the early to mid '80s, so you had things like superpowers and Dark Knight Returns
Oh,
and
that's great stuff.
all these things and GI Joe and Star Wars, and it just grew into this whole
Whole thing.
huge huge thing at that time.
Now, do you still have from that GI? I know some people, when they started collecting, eventually they sold and then they try to buy back what they had. Do you still have most of that early GI Joe stuff?
The toys, no. Um, I did. I about almost 15 years ago needed some money. You know how it goes. You needed some
Yeah.
money, so sold off all the GI Joes, kept one vehicle, sold off all the Star Wars, kept one figure,
Mm.
and sold off half my comic book collection at that time, which I'm still kicking myself about.
Right.
But because there was issues in there, first appearances that was before the Marvel craze, movie craze.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
No, our friend Lauren, who sets up next to us, he tells us all the time how in the '80s, I think it was '80s, how he when he was like first growing up, he saved up and I think he spent like $80 to $90 buying Hulk 181. It was something along those lines, and he was like, "Oh, I
yeah,
can't believe I'm spending this much money, on a comic book." And then like today, if you could get that for that price, you'd buy as many as you could.
I remember this was in the '80s at a comic book show in a mall in Ohio. And guy had a wall books up, and he's walking. I'm walking by, and I didn't have the money, but I'm like, "What are you asking for your showcase number four, first appearance of Barry Allen Flash?"
Mm.
He's like, $250.
Yeah, never
Now
now.
it's yeah, oh yeah, now yeah, you can't even get a coverless one for $250.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's crazy. Um,
So
So do you have any? I noticed when you were listing off characters, like you mentioned, like the Flash and Green Lantern, do you
yeah,
gravitate more towards DC or do you like Marvel
I have
also? Or
yeah, I've always gravitated towards DC. It's I guess because of Super Friends
Hmm.
and that's been my Batman, Flash. When I was in high school, junior high, high school, when my mom was working with some friends at work, she goes, "Oh, my son's into comics." So the woman goes, "Hey, I got a bunch of comics from when my son was a kid,
Hmm.
and it's all Silver Age Flash books."
Oh,
So that
nice.
really got. So I had a stack of those, and I just reread those repeatedly.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So yeah, so that really, that sets you, those
Mhm.
ground, those settings, those stones.
Yes, exactly. Well, I've always kind of I've collected both, but I think consistently I've always liked DC a little bit more with their storytelling. I feel like Marvel at times could be a little inconsistent with their quality. Still like
Yeah.
a lot of characters in Marvel, but like Spider-Man comics, I don't know, never, like they struggle to get a good writer, but Batman, I mean, I've been buying Batman since I think like 2011 or 2012, which is always pretty much always been has been great.
Hmm.
And you had some great
I
stories in the
agree.
80s, like you mentioned, you know.
Yeah. And that's, yeah, you're really, and there's so much, it was introduced in the 80s. I mean, you went through the multiple Robins, you went through, and that was even before Nightfall and Bane and
Yeah. Did
yeah,
did you get to vote in the I can't remember what year it was, but Death in the Family, did you
I
get to
did. I did. I called in the 900 number, voted to kill him.
you voted to kill him?
Yes.
I wonder how I never I think it's out there, but I don't know how narrow that vote was. I'm curious. I think it was relatively close if I remember reading once
I
about
think
him.
so because they wrote both stories. They wrote it both ways.
Yeah.
They have
But
like,
now
well,
he's
we met.
back, so you
Right.
know.
Yeah. It doesn't matter.
But very iconic story still, you know.
Right.
Well, that's the thing. Like I
Right.
think they were with Batman, they're willing to do like we're gonna kill Robin. You know, it's they do stuff like that sometimes, and it's pretty good, pretty compelling.
Yeah. I mean, they did it with Superman. They killed Superman. And,
Yeah,
of course, I
of
think
course,
he's died three times since.
right. They
But
had
at the first time, it was a major deal.
yeah. I was talking about it with somebody else the other day. How like so many people in the '90s bought so many copies of that because they thought, oh, this is a huge deal. It was on the news that Superman was gonna die, and you know.
They printed millions of them.
Right. Well, that's why so many
I see
comics in
them
the
all.
90s, it's just, there's only so many that are truly huge keys because they printed so many in the 90s.
Right. You have to go to the independent route. You have to go to
Yeah,
your Ninja Turtles and your um, Tick and
right, exactly.
those
Let's
more
get a little bit more
independent
obscure.
off-beat comics. Yes.
Right. So then, how'd you go from, collecting comics and collecting toys to like, okay, I'm going to now sell them with your business, RVK Comics and Toys?
Well, you've met my partner Wayne,
Hmm.
who's always at shows with me, or most
Right.
times. Him and I helped another local retailer, comic book store, helped him for years.
Hmm.
We still do help set up at Heroes Con and help him run his booth during the show weekend. Um, well, him and I both got to the point where like we're talking one day, we're like, we got to clean out some stuff. I got too much. He's got
Right.
too much. So we said, well, let's just set up at a show or two, see what we can get rid of.
Hmm.
And we did fairly well at these shows, and it's just grown into okay, we got to come up with a name. Oh, we've got to
Yeah.
start booking shows regularly. We got to buy
Yeah.
supplies. We got to buy collections to
Yeah.
and so that's how it's grown into what we're doing, and we've grown enough now where most times we do shows together side by side. We
Hmm.
share a booth, and we did a lot of booth sharing, and we still do is for costs to
Yeah.
keep the costs down because it's like
Definitely.
some shows are you know booth
$100 depending
tables
on where you're
kind of
going.
high.
Yeah.
Right. So if we eat by a table, then split a third table gives us a little more room.
Yeah.
And so that's how that's grown. We did not plan to grow it like it has.
Well,
It was
I guess
just
that's a good problem to have.
yeah, it is. But now I've got a storage unit full of stuff. I've got to and I bought a van to haul the stuff around and
Yeah.
doing all these other things on top of it.
I think there's a lot of things you don't like once you start getting into like, wow, there's a lot more things I need to consider because we started doing shows in 2021 or two, I think was our first show. And like our inventory started as just like books in Tim's collection that he wanted to get rid of. And then, like he said, now it's like, okay, we're doing well. We probably need to buy more stock now. And we're using his personal van to transport stuff and he's got to, fix the van and it's a lot of stuff you got to consider.
It is because I was hauling stuff. Well, first I tried to do it in my my Hyundai Kona. I could
Mm.
just barely fit stuff in. Then I was using my wife's Soul, which was just a little bit bigger, but
Oh,
not
Kia Soul?
enough. Yeah,
Oh yeah, yeah. Those, I mean, they're a little bit bigger, but they're not designed to haul
not
too much
that
stuff.
much. And then if you want to have walls, your wall
Oh yeah,
books.
yeah.
So I designed some breakdown ones that would fit through 3D printing and aluminum rod. It would fit in the back of our vehicles, just fit. Now we've gone to the wood and the
Yeah.
4 foot, 6 foot high sections, and
Do you have any funny stories you can think of with setting up? Because I can think of it's like maybe a couple months ago I was setting up at I think Matthews Comic Con, and I it was just me and Tim's like, just grab a we keep the stuff at his house, so we're grabbing a box, and his son is like, do you know which box to grab? I said, oh, just any box. So he hands me a box, and I go and I'm setting up, and I go to the toy box and I open it, and it's empty. So we chose the only box in there that had nothing in it. And obviously Tim gave me a very hard time for that. But
I'm sure he did. Um, Trying to think if there's anything. No, I mean we have fun. Wayne and I mean, I'll be a little blue here, but we bust balls all the time.
right.
So
Well, I think that's
because
part of
he'll bring, yeah, he brings so much stuff, and I say, dude, you got too much. It's just I
yeah,
can't. How do you know where anything starts and stops? And
yeah. Well, the hard thing too with setting up is you never know, you may have, we've got multiple sets of stuff. And it's like, well, if I don't bring this, what if somebody wants this very specific thing? And someone comes to your booth and like, do you have blah blah? I'm like, I have that at home. It's like
yeah,
you
oh, I
never know what
yeah.
somebody's gonna want.
The thing I've learned doing shows is, and we're trying to, we're just mainly in the Charlotte area, just like you
Mhm.
guys, but we're trying to expand out to Columbia and Asheville and
Yeah,
Hickory. And the thing is, I found with these, I know the Charlotte market. I know my Charlotte guys,
right.
especially doing the Charlotte Comic Con. I know exactly what each of these guys are looking for that I see time after time.
Yeah,
But when you get out to these shows outer areas, you're like, I can't believe I sold that. I've been carrying that thing
right.
around for 5 years, and I was
Somebody found what they wanted.
doing a show in Columbia last year, and I had a Cleveland Browns pop figure,
Hmm.
and the guy walks by, he looks at it, walks off, comes back and buys it, and I'm like, dude, this is Columbia. Why are you buying a Cleveland Browns figure?
Right.
He goes, I don't collect Cleveland Browns. I collect the player.
Oh, all
I said,
right.
okay, well, great. I'm
That's
glad you
exactly
found
what he was
something.
looking for.
Yeah,
I mean, we've got some obscure stuff in ours here and there, and just people would just pull it out, be like, "Oh, I want this." I'm like, "Sure." It's like you never
yeah.
know, you
More
know?
power to you.
Right. Well, well, you've been to a bunch of shows at this point. What would you say, like, both as a seller and buyer, I guess, like, what makes a good con? The cons that you've been to, is it, I guess, like, what things in common do the really good shows have?
um, I mean, shows are the good shows are the ones that that advertise and have the good crowds that come in. It just I've been to some. It's like, okay,
Right.
did you let anybody know? I mean, I did a
Right.
show. It's sort of a flea market type show in Columbia. I keep mentioning Columbia, but just this last couple months, and it was advertised as free advertising. Then the venue decided to charge for parking. I'm sorry,
Oh,
free parking that
oh
day, and
yeah.
then so that I think that really hurt them and hurt as a vendor.
Yeah. Right.
Then one of the venue guys, as I'm loading up, leaving, well, how was your weekend? And you don't want to say, well, it would have been better if you guys didn't charge.
Yeah.
You don't want to
You
be
gotta, you
rude.
want to be polite, but it's
Yeah,
hard sometimes, those little things. Um,
yeah.
and that's, I know
Um,
we had our show, Nerdfest, a few months ago, and I know that was a big thing that, Tim and Derek were pushing. I mean, the advertisement, because you're wondering like, okay, I've been doing all this stuff for a month now, but the day of the show, like, are people going to show up? That's like make or
Right,
break. And it was really, I
right.
mean, it was great. We had a great turnout for that.
You guys
Um,
did. Um, but that's another thing with certain shows. It's like you have to learn what to bring.
yeah.
What is the market for certain shows? And I'm
Mhm.
not saying this about Nerdfest, but I'm saying about certain shows. It's like, okay, this is a dollar book crowd,
Yeah.
or
No,
or
exactly.
this is the crowd where I can bring some of the higher priced books
Right.
if you really
Well,
want
because
to be
then,
moving stock.
yeah, because you've got a limited space. So like you can only bring
Yeah,
so much. And so like, am I gonna, you think back like after if you have a show where you don't do so well, you're like, okay, did I not bring the right stuff? Was it just, you try to think about and reflect on those things.
right.
Um, I gotta ask, especially for the Charlotte Comic Con
Yes,
that Dave's run. We've been your neighbor for that for the past couple years, I believe. And I
yes.
gotta ask, you can be very honest here. Are we good neighbors?
Oh, yes. You guys are great.
Excellent.
Um, we've never had any problems. I know, like the Matthews Con, we saw you. You and I both witnessed what happened across the room with the racks coming down.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Oof.
I've never
Yeah.
had any problems at the Charlotte Con
Yeah.
with other dealers or you guys or you know.
Yeah.
Are we good neighbors?
You're very good. I remember when I think it was this. I can't remember what year it was because it all blends together after a while. But I
Yeah, they all
think
did.
one of the August shows was our second show ever, and we needed like a little bit of space. And you were very polite and were like, "Oh yeah, scoot over, do what you got to do." So you've always been very, very kind, and we definitely appreciate having you guys as neighbors. And I think all around the whole comic book community, like even though technically I guess you're competitors because everyone there wants to make as much money as possible. Everyone's very friendly, whether it's like helping you set up or if someone's like, "Hey, I don't have this, but I know for a fact they have it." It's a good community, I feel.
Oh, definitely.
Like sometimes
Um,
you guys have stuff that we don't have. We're like, "Hey, check out what they're selling over there."
right, right. I mean, yeah, and it was funny. Um, we were at the Heroes Con, and my friend who owns the stores, which is A Pennyworth and Matthews,
Okay.
he's
Yeah, I
giving
love
me
they're
a
great.
hard time because he's giving me a hard time because I'm talking to Derek of Beardy, and I go see not Derek, I'm sorry, Chris of Beardy, and
Okay.
I go see
Yeah.
Derek, and I'm talking to Cherry
Yeah.
Pickers. I'm all the same guys we see every show,
Yeah.
and they're like, yeah, it's a circuit. It's a circuit of guys. It's a circuit of shows.
Right. You get to see the same people, you at the end of a show, you're like, "How'd you do?" You're seeing, can you help one
Right.
another? Sometimes you're helping one another out, or if you don't do so well at a show, you're like, "Hey, look at my wall. What do you want?" I'll cut you a deal.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
I
it's
mean,
it's great.
and yes, exactly. It's this that it's that it is really is a circle of friends, and everyone's like real polite. I've never seen anybody real, no problems with anybody.
Yeah, no, it's been. I feel like if someone did cause a problem, I feel like that would kind of ripple through the group and be like, "Hey, don't, you know,
Don't deal
don't
with
mess with
them.
that person."
Yeah,
Avoid that
yeah.
person. Um, so Um, before we start the call, I mentioned in the back you've got some cool Star Wars figures, and you're saying that some of those are 3D printed. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. The IG unit head, the full size head, that's all 3D printed.
Nice.
Um, the other, now let me grab it. This IG unit is 3D printed.
Oh, nice. That's really cool.
Um, it's based on the old original Hasbro
Hmm.
style. Um, yeah, so I've got a couple 3D printers. I'm working on a full size mouse droid right now,
Oh,
which will
sweet.
be
That's
RC
awesome.
controlled. And then
Uh,
I do some scratch building and just different
mhm.
kit bashing and just different robots and vehicles. So
So do you still maintain like your own person, like your own personal collection of toys as well?
Yeah, yeah. I've got stuff scattered throughout the room here that you don't even get to see. A few pops, a few McFarlane figures, some Star Wars. Star Wars black figures are just so many, so I had to say, okay, I'm going to focus on Empire era stormtroopers, or
Right,
um, it was just so, and like GI Joe. It's like I love the new GI Joe stuff, but there's just too much and too expensive for my
right. Do you
to
ever
just.
do you ever struggle with, and this is something that mainly I'll tease Tim about this, but his wife Courtney will really tease him about it, where we'll make some money at a show. He's like, all right, I'll be right back. And then he comes back with a toy and we're like, Tim, you know, do you do you shop around much when you go to a show?
I used to shop around for myself. And occasionally I'll pick up an issue or something, a book. It's like, oh, there's a Dave Stevens cover I had never seen,
Hmm.
you know, um, a lot of times when I'm going around, I'm buying stuff to resell.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You got to
But
think a little bit
I do
differently.
come across toys. I think my second show we did, I went and bought a hot toy, which is
Nice.
just like, oh, okay, it's still in the box in the closet upstairs, but I got it.
Nice. I've had to have a lot because a lot of self-control because like pre-shows I would I wouldn't go to a show that often. I'd go maybe once or twice a year and I'd spend a hundred
Right.
dollars or so each at a show, but now you go to almost once a month and I'm like I cannot do that at every show. And so I haven't bought back issues actually in a while, just because of self-control, I guess.
And right now with my book buying, I do very much very curated things. It's like I just try to get. I don't just go to the dollar bin and buy. Okay, here's $50 worth of books, and
Right.
it's like if I'm buying something for myself, it's like it's got to be something unique.
Something very specific. Yeah.
Right, like at Heroes Con 2 weeks ago, I found it was from 1989. It's one of Bruce Timm's first covers,
Oh, nice.
and it's just like, okay, well, I've never seen it in the wild. I've got
Yeah,
to get it.
exactly. Well, this kind of leads me to something else I wanted to ask you. Let's say money wasn't an issue.
Mhm.
What would be something like a comic that you would love to have for your comic or toy that you'd love to have for your personal collection?
Well, single comic, I would probably say, oh, showcase number four, Flash, first appearance
Yeah,
of Flash.
yeah,
Even though I've got reprints of it and read it, but it's still to have that
to
issue.
get the original thing. Yeah,
Right. Toy wise, either I've had it or it's like, and yeah, I really maybe something like the USS Flag, but I have no place to put it. I would have to
right.
have.
This is the hard thing about the bigger stuff is like where do you put it?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. It's like this full size mouse droid I'm making. I have no idea where I'm going to keep it once it's done.
Well, I was going to ask earlier, do when you 3D print this stuff, is it solely for you, or do you plan to resell anything that you 3D print? Or
I just make it for myself.
yeah, that's cool.
It's always been a. I do have a Etsy store and eBay store for some of my personal books I make and sell,
Hmm.
um, and stickers, which is Trident Studios. Let me just throw that out there.
Yeah, I'll be sure to tag it.
Yeah, and yeah, but I don't like doing because custom stuff and
Yeah, that can get like weighs more. It's a little. I'm sure that's harder to ship and just the
it's
whole
hard to ship and it's like, well, it's do they really like it? Don't they like it? Am I
right.
underselling it? Am I
Yeah,
overselling it?
seems a lot harder. Right.
Yeah, a comic book's easy. You go online, see what they're going for nowadays, and
Yeah. What's the fair price? Slap it on it,
right,
and it's a little easier.
right. Same way
Um.
with toys.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you, and this has been great. Just as we're getting close to wrapping up here, what would be your advice to other collectors? Let's say maybe someone's trying to get into comic book buying or toy buying. What would be your advice for them?
Um, well, it's always buy what you like. Don't try to see you're going to flip it and make a buck off of it
Mhm.
because I had a closet full of comics, or I thought I was going to make more off of, and they're dollar books.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
um, and that was the other thing that got me into reselling was the oh hey, let me start looking these prices up. They're like, wait a minute, I spent $4 for this, and I'm lucky to get a buck.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
um, yeah, and buy what you like. I mean, don't think you're going to get rich off of any of this.
Yeah.
You'll get lucky with a few pieces, but you're
Hmm.
not gonna. And just buy like what you like and buy, you know. And if you've never seen it before, that's the time to buy it
Yeah.
because you're gonna kick yourself later.
Hmm.
You know, yeah, it might be a few dollars more than what you really expected to spend, but I think you'll be happier in the long run.
Yeah. And I definitely, that's something I mean, I talk to comic book dealers all the time. I ask this question and it's a common answer, but I like asking it because like that's the main point. It's like buy what you like. Odds are I mean, I've got about maybe 15 long boxes to my left of books that I've bought over the years. And maybe like probably like 98% of those are not worth a lot of money, maybe 99% of them. But usually if you're a dealer and you're buying a collection, you usually buy a collection because like, oh, there's a few things, there might be something you see here and there that's really worth the collection. So if you're
Right.
buying just to, oh, eventually this is going to make me a lot of money, you're probably going to be disappointed.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah. I mean, because I buy, you know, I bought some really crappy collections and made a few, found a few good books in them,
Right.
and
Like a,
but I made my money off those few good books.
right, that one or two books will save the collection. If you
Right.
this is an extreme example. If you're looking through a collection and someone has dollar books, but then they've got, I don't know, Hulk 181. That's a very, you'd spend
Yeah.
a lot of money just for that book and the rest you'd throw in a dollar bin, you know.
Right. Oh, and that's exactly what I did. I bought some last fall, and it's like they ended up being 50-cent quarter books because to
Hmm.
get the good stuff.
Right. So you gotta buy what you like, and maybe down the road you might be pleasantly surprised. The first book I think I ever bought it's like Thor 617, and it was from some storyline I read about when I was in high school, where like Loki got reincarnated as a kid. I was like, oh, that'll be cool, and I bought it for like $4. And
Yeah.
then like 12 years later, the Loki show came out, or maybe 10 years later, Loki show came out, and the kid Loki character showed up, and I looked online and it was like, oh, this book's now going for $40. I didn't sell
Right.
it because I liked the storyline and didn't really feel like it, but I
Right.
was like, oh, that's neat. You just kind of like, okay,
Yes.
cool.
But that's the only problem with that with the Marvel movies is like they're rumored to come out and which shoots the price up on some of those Marvel books,
Yeah,
or that price drops tremendously after the
right. There's so
debut.
much speculate. That's the hard thing, and we could do a whole video on speculation because I remember maybe it was around when the new Doctor Strange movie was coming out. There was this title called Superior Iron Man that came out a few years ago, and he had this like silver suit where you could see his face and all this stuff. And it was rumored that Tom Cruise was going to be a Iron Man
Right.
variant and would show up in the movie. And so the price went up, and then it was like, oh, by the way, that's not actually happening. Boom, price goes down. It's
Oh, gosh. Um,
right. It's weird.
Same thing happened with Captain America: Brave New World,
Yeah.
Serpent Society, and
Yes.
Giancarlo Esposito's character, and
Yeah, exactly. There'll be, or like indie comics, people like, oh, this is the comic, let's go out, and then people buy it up, but then it's just okay, it goes down. It's
Amazon
fun,
and yeah,
but you don't want to chase.
Amazon and Netflix is screwing stuff up right now too. It's like, oh, we've they're going to make a TV show of this.
Right, we bought the rights to this,
Yeah,
and so the
then
price
nothing
goes
ever
up, and
happens.
yeah, it's an that's why, you as a dealer, you don't want to. I mean, you can speculate, you can try, but then I guess as a collector too, you just don't want to be chasing stuff.
Right. And I see
If you
so many people chasing stuff.
right now, if you're chasing collectibles, that's fine. If you're doing it
Yeah.
for the love of chasing collectible and getting what you like, but it can be a very dangerous. I mean, I compare it sometimes to the stock market. If you're buying a stock, I dabble sometimes in stocks, but if you're buying a stock that everybody's buying and it's already gone up a bunch, odds are you may have missed out already, and you don't want to jump on. You know, if a book's already like shot up in price, now it's $100. If you buy it at 100, and then the next week it's 90, you may have, you know,
Yeah. You got to
so,
set on it till it hits 105.
right, exactly, yeah, exactly. Um, well, do you have any shows coming up that you're going to in the near future?
We are doing the Wilkes Con in I'm sorry, January, July 11th.
Okay.
Then the following week, we are at the Crossroads Expo in Statesville.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I think we'll be at that one too. So I shall see you
Yeah.
there. That's the plan.
Okay. Sounds good.
Nice. Well, Don, this has been awesome. Definitely been meaning to have you on the show, especially since we've been neighbors. You can verify that we're at
Yeah.
least reputable dealers to all the
Yes.
good people. And definitely be sure to tag all your socials in this. And thanks again. We really appreciate having you as neighbors and being a friend to us.
Well, thank you. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you. All right. Take care.
All right. Thanks. Good night.
Bye.
Yay, comics!